My name is Rowan Blake. I'm 37 years old. And until last Christmas, my family treated my bank account like an emergency service they could call without permission. 2 weeks before the 25th of December, my older brother walked into the inspection office where I worked, dropped a 16,000 pounds invoice on my desk, and tapped the total with his finger. "Cover my son's university fees," he ordered. "Halls, laptop, catering costs, everything is due before January." He didn't ask whether I could afford it. He didn't even sit down. He spoke as though I had missed a payment on a debt I owed him. I slid the invoice back. Not happening. His jaw tightened, but instead of arguing, he smiled. "We'll discuss it at Christmas." That smile bothered me more than the demand. A week later, I stopped by my parents' house to return a set of keys. Before I entered the kitchen, I heard my brother speaking behind the half-closed door. "Don't worry, after Christmas dinner, she'll pay. I already told everyone she promised." My mother answered without hesitation. "Of course, she will. That's her role." I stood there holding the keys so tightly that their teeth cut into my palm. They weren't hoping I would help. They were preparing to corner me in front of the entire family, using my nephew's future as leverage. What they didn't know was that I had already noticed something strange about that 16,000 pounds bill. The university logo was correct, but the payment instructions weren't. That night, I changed my Christmas plans, called the university directly, and uncovered a lie much larger than tuition. On the 25th of December, my brother expected me to arrive with a check. Instead, I brought proof that would cost him far more than 16,000 pounds. Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it where you are right now and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story travels. I worked as a lift safety investigator in Manchester, a job most people didn't understand until they were trapped between floors. I inspected mechanical failures, reconstructed accidents, reviewed maintenance records, and testified when property owners tried to hide negligence. The work trained me to notice inconsistencies, altered dates, missing signatures, numbers that looked correct until you compared them with the original documents. That habit had saved lives. It was about to expose my brother. Tristan Blake was 41, 3 years older than me, and had spent most of our childhood being described as full of potential. When he failed a class, Mum blamed the teacher. When he wrecked Dad's car, she blamed the wet road even though it was June. When I earned a scholarship, she congratulated me by saying, "Good. Now we can concentrate on helping Tristan." I learned early that achievement did not earn me protection. It only made me useful. The pattern followed us into adulthood. When Tristan's first business failed, I covered 2 months of his mortgage because Mum said Callum shouldn't lose his home. When Tristan needed dental work, I paid because he claimed his insurance had lapsed. When he wanted to repair his car, I transferred 4,000 pounds after he promised it was the last time. He never repaid me. Instead, every rescue became evidence that I could afford the next one. I had made one sacrifice I never told the family about. At 32, I was offered a supervisory position in Edinburgh. It came with better pay, a larger team, and the chance to help write national safety standards. 3 days before I was supposed to accept, Dad suffered a mild stroke. Tristan said he couldn't help because his work schedule was unpredictable, so I declined the transfer and stayed in Manchester for 8 months. I drove Dad to rehabilitation appointments before reporting to construction sites. Tristan visited twice. Mum still introduced him to relatives as the devoted son who had kept everyone's spirits up. By the time he brought me the tuition bill, I had stopped lending money for almost a year. Tristan knew it. That was why his confidence felt rehearsed. The morning after I overheard him speaking with Mum, 3 relatives texted me. My aunt wrote, "You're doing a wonderful thing for Callum." A cousin I barely spoke to sent 16,000 pounds is generous, but education is the best gift. Tristan had already announced my contribution as fact. He had turned my refusal into a public promise, assuming embarrassment would force me to obey. Then Callum called. He sounded uncomfortable. "Aunt Rowan, Dad says I should thank you for what?" "The university money. I haven't agreed to pay anything." There was a long pause. "He said you were just pretending to say no because you wanted to surprise everyone." I closed my office door. Callum, did the university send you an invoice for £16,000? No. My student finance portal says I owe a little over £6,000 before the term starts. My hand froze around the phone. Are you sure? Yes. I got a maintenance loan last month. Dad said there were other costs though. Did you choose a new laptop? My current one works. What about catering? The basic catering package is already included in my balance. The invoice on my desk suddenly looked less like entitlement and more like fraud. I asked Callum to send me screenshots of his official student account. He hesitated because Tristan had warned him not to confuse me with details, but eventually he agreed. The real balance was £6,240. The document Tristan gave me demanded £16,000. Nearly £10,000 had nothing to do with Callum's education. I searched the sort code and account number beneath the fake payment instructions. It did not belong to the university. It led to a local building society. The account holder name was hidden from public search, but the branch address was less than a mile from Tristan's furniture showroom. That evening, Tristan texted me, "Bring a banker's draft on Christmas. Make it payable according to the invoice. Don't make this awkward for Callum." I stared at the message and wondered how many times love had been used as a disguise for control. Was I protecting my family by rescuing them, or was I teaching them that my boundaries could always be purchased with guilt? I did not answer. Instead, I saved the message, printed the real university balance, and began an investigation of my own. My first call was to the university's financial services department. Because Callum was legally an adult, they could not disclose details beyond what he had already shown me. However, they confirmed that the payment instructions on Tristan's invoice were not associated with the school. They also confirmed that laptops were purchased independently and that no student would be billed £16,000 through a private building society account. I sent Callum a careful message. "The bill your father gave me is not from your university. Please don't confront him yet. Check your account and tell me whether any refunds or loans have been redirected." He called 10 minutes later, whispering from his bedroom. His student finance portal showed that a £4,800 loan overpayment refund had been deposited 3 weeks earlier. Callum had never received it. The destination account ended in the same 4 digits as the account printed on Tristan's fake invoice. "Did you authorize that?" I asked. "Dad helped me set up the portal," he said. "He told me the refund would stay with the school." My anger became colder. Tristan had not merely inflated a bill. He had redirected his son's student loan refund, and was now trying to extract another £16,000 from me. Callum would eventually be responsible for repaying money he had never seen. I told Callum to change every password, activate 2-factor authentication, and contact the university's fraud office. I also insisted that he speak privately with a student financial counselor. He was frightened that reporting the transfer might get Tristan arrested. I did not promise that it wouldn't. I told him the truth. Protecting someone from the consequences of taking your money does not restore trust. It only gives them time to take more. The next day, Tristan called me 6 times. I let each call go to voicemail. The messages evolved from false patience to threats. "Rowan, I need confirmation. Mum says you're creating unnecessary stress. You're embarrassing, Callum. Everyone will be at Christmas dinner, so we're settling this then." The final voicemail was the most revealing. "You've always needed to feel important. Here's your chance. Pay the bill and be the hero." I exported the audio files and added them to a secure folder. Years of accident investigations had taught me that a timeline was more powerful than an emotional accusation. I created one for Tristan. It included the fake invoice, the university's written confirmation, screenshots from Callum's portal, proof of the redirected refund, Tristan's messages, and bank transfers showing the £31,700 I had previously given him. That total did not include meals, gifts, unpaid labor, or the Edinburgh promotion I had surrendered. It contained only documented transfers. Facts did not need exaggeration. Then I examined the fake invoice more closely. In the file properties, the author's name appeared as T. Blake. The template had been created on a computer registered to Heritage Home Furnishings, Tristan's employer. I called the showroom, pretending I needed to verify his employment for a professional reference. The receptionist became quiet before saying Tristan had not worked there since October. He had been dismissed 2 months earlier. According to a former colleague who later contacted me, Tristan had been let go after customer deposits went missing from 3 sales accounts. The company had not filed charges because he agreed to repay the money. His first repayment deadline was the 27th of December. The amount he owed was £9,760. That explained the false addition to Callum's university bill. Tristan intended to use my money to repay his former employer, conceal the theft, and preserve his image as a working father. He was using his son's education as camouflage. I met Callum at a coffee shop across from campus. He looked exhausted. At 18, he should have been worried about exams and flatmates, not whether his father had stolen loan money in his name. He admitted Tristan had been opening his post for years and had recently pressured him to sign several blank student finance forms. I thought he was helping, Callum said. He may tell himself that, I replied. But help does not require secrecy. I offered to pay for an independent consultation with a student financial advisor and, if necessary, a solicitor. I made one boundary clear. I would not hand money to Tristan or quietly replace what he had taken. Any assistance would go directly through verified institutions, and Callum would control the decisions. He agreed. Before we left, he asked whether I planned to expose everything at Christmas dinner. I plan to give your father one chance to tell the truth himself. You think he will? I thought of Tristan smiling in my office, certain I would surrender. No, I said, but I want everyone to see that he was given the choice. My original instinct had been to skip Christmas. Walking away would have protected my peace, but it would also have allowed Tristan to tell the family that I had abandoned Callum. Silence had protected him for years. This time, I wanted the record to be clear. I did not prepare envelopes. I built a private digital presentation that could be opened from my tablet. I also brought a small locked document case, containing one symbolic item, the spare key to the terraced house where Tristan and Callum lived. The property belonged to my parents, but I had quietly paid nearly every major repair bill for 7 years. Tristan had always treated it as permanent rent-free housing. Dad had recently mentioned transferring the deed to him. After I showed Dad part of the evidence, that plan changed. The key would not be a gift. It would be a deadline. Christmas morning, Tristan posted a family photograph online with the caption, "Grateful for the people who step up when it matters." I was not in the picture. Several relatives commented that he must be proud of Callum and fortunate to have such a generous sister. He reacted to every comment with a heart. By noon, I knew he planned to turn dinner into a performance. Aunt Linda called and asked whether she should record the big university surprise. Tristan had told everyone I was presenting Callum with a £16,000 check after dessert. He had even instructed Mum to place a card beside my plate so I could put the check inside it. I arrived at my parents' house at 5, carrying no dessert and no visible gift. I wore a charcoal suit because I had come directly from an emergency inspection at an apartment building. Tristan laughed when he saw me. "You dress like you're going to court. Maybe I like being prepared." His smile faltered for half a second. Callum avoided eye contact. Mum Eleanor Blake kissed my cheek and whispered, "Please don't spoil tonight. Your brother has had a difficult year." She still did not know he had been dismissed. Dad, Jeffrey Blake, knew only that there was a problem with Callum's financial account. I had withheld the full evidence because I wanted Tristan to speak before I did. 14 people crowded around the dining table. Before anyone touched the food, Tristan stood and tapped his glass. He thanked Mum for cooking, praised Callum for becoming the first Blake grandson to attend university, and then turned toward me. "And I want to recognize Rowan," he said. "She may act tough, but she knows family comes first. Tonight, she's taking care of Callum's entire spring term bill." Applause broke out. My aunt raised her phone to record. Mum beamed at me as if my consent were an irrelevant detail. Callum stared at his plate. Tristan extended his hand. "You can give him the check now." I didn't bring one. The applause died unevenly. Tristan chuckled. "She loves suspense. I said no when you came to my office." I said no again, Through every message you ignored. There was never a check. Mum's face tightened. Rowan, we discussed this. No, you and Tristan discussed it. I was assigned a role. Tristan leaned toward me. Do not humiliate my son because you're angry with me. Callum suddenly looked up. Dad, stop saying this is for me. The room went still. Tristan's voice dropped. We talked about this. No, you talked. You told me to thank her for money she never promised. Mum looked between them. Callum, your father is only trying to help. Callum pulled a folded printout from his pocket and placed it beside his plate. My real balance is £6,240. Tristan's confidence cracked. That doesn't include everything. It includes housing and catering, Callum replied. I never asked for a laptop. Aunt Linda slowly lowered her phone. Dad's expression changed from confusion to suspicion. I opened the locked case and placed Tristan's invoice beside the official statement. The document Tristan gave me is fake. The payment account does not belong to the university. Tristan pushed back from the table. You called the school behind our backs. I verified a £16,000 demand. You had no right to investigate me. I investigate falsified records for a living. Mum reached for the fake invoice as though touching it might make the discrepancy disappear. Tristan, explain this. He answered too quickly. It's a holding account. The university recommended it. No, they didn't, Callum said. His voice shook, but he continued. The account received my student loan refund, £4,800. I didn't authorize the transfer. The table erupted in overlapping questions. Tristan accused Callum of misunderstanding the portal. He accused me of poisoning his son against him. He claimed the university had made an error and promised to clear it up after the holidays. I allowed him to speak until he ran out of versions. Then I asked one question. Were you dismissed from Heritage Home Furnishings in October? His face emptied. Mum whispered, Dismissed? Tristan glared at me. That is none of your business. Did the company demand £9,760 after customer deposits disappeared? Dad stood so quickly his chair struck the wall. Answer her. Tristan's voice became sharp. I borrowed money. I was going to put it back from customers. Dad asked if it was temporary. And Callum's loan refund, I said. Tristan pointed at me. You don't understand what it costs to raise a child. You have no husband, no kids, and no responsibilities beyond yourself. You sit in your expensive flat judging people who have real lives. There it was, the contempt beneath every request. My success was selfish when I kept it, and a family resource when he needed it. I understand exactly what you planned. I said you added the amount you owed your employer to Callum's university balance. You expected me to transfer £16,000 into your account. Then you planned to repay the missing customer deposits and pretend you had funded your son's term. Tristan's eyes darted toward the relatives now watching him with open disgust. Mum covered her mouth. Tell me that isn't true. He did not. The silence was not merely the absence of sound. It was the moment every excuse my family had built around Tristan finally lost its support. Tristan recovered by becoming furious. He struck the table with his palm, rattling the glasses. So what if I move the refund? It was going toward the family. Callum still needs university. I needed to protect my job. And Rowan has more money than she knows what to do with. You didn't protect your job, Dad said. You lost it. I would have fixed everything if she had helped me. That sentence turned several relatives against him at once. Until then, some had looked uncomfortable, as though the truth might be balanced by holiday politeness. But Tristan had just admitted that his plan depended on my compliance. Aunt Linda asked, When you told us Rowan volunteered, you knew she had refused? Tristan ignored her. My cousin Daniel spoke next. You asked me to pressure her. You said she was backing out because she wanted attention. She always makes everything dramatic, Tristan said. I connected my tablet to the television in the adjoining room. I did not show private banking details or anything unrelated to the issue. I displayed a simple timeline. The date Tristan lost his job, the date Callum's refund was redirected, the date the fake invoice was created, and the date Tristan demanded my check. Beside each event was a verified document. Tristan rushed toward the television, but Dad stepped between us. "Sit down," Dad said. It was the first time in my life I had heard him command Tristan without softening the words. Tristan remained standing. "You're all taking her side because she made a slideshow." "No," Callum said. "We're taking the truth seriously." Tristan turned on him. "Everything I did was for you. Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're a kid. I'm old enough to owe the loan you took." The force of that sentence landed harder than anything I had said. Callum was no longer a shield Tristan could hold between himself and consequences. He was the person who would carry those consequences. Mum began crying, but Callum did not comfort her. For years, his grandmother's tears had ended every argument by making the rest of us feel cruel. This time, he stayed seated. I closed the presentation. There are 3 issues that need to be addressed. First, Callum's university fraud office has frozen the redirected account and is reviewing the transfer. Second, Heritage Home Furnishings has been informed that the money Tristan promised them may have come from an unauthorized student loan deposit. Third, I will not fund the false invoice or replace the money privately. Tristan's face reddened. "You reported me to my employer." "Former employer," I corrected. "And I did not file a criminal complaint." Callum reported the unauthorized transfer through his university. The university contacted the financial institution. The investigation followed the account. "You set him up. I helped him protect himself." Mum stood beside Tristan. "Rowan, please stop this before it goes further. Pay the university directly. Let Tristan return what he owes and we can handle the rest inside the family." That was exactly how our family had always functioned. Tristan created damage. Mum translated the damage into a request and I paid for the repair so no outsider would learn what happened. "No," I said. "Handling it inside the family is how he learned that consequences were optional." Mum's expression hardened. "Then you're choosing money over your brother." "I'm choosing not to finance fraud." She turned to Dad for support, but he did not give it. Instead, he reached into a cabinet and removed a folder. 3 days earlier, after I showed him the fake invoice, he had met privately with a solicitor. The terraced house Tristan occupied belonged to my parents, and Tristan had not paid rent in 4 years. Dad placed a formal occupancy notice on the table. Tristan stared at it. "What is that?" "You have 60 days to move out," Dad said. Mum gasped. She clearly had not known. Dad continued. "The property will not be transferred to you. It will be sold. Part of the proceeds will go into an education trust controlled by an independent trustee for Callum. You will not have access." Tristan looked from Dad to me. This was her idea. "The trust was," Dad said. "The eviction was mine." For the first time, Tristan seemed frightened rather than angry. The free terraced house had allowed him to survive every failed job, missed payment, and impulsive purchase. Losing it meant he could no longer maintain the appearance that he was stable. Mum grabbed Dad's arm. "You can't throw your son out. He used his son's loan to repay money he took from customers. He made a mistake." "No," Dad replied. "A mistake is one bad decision. We have spent 20 years protecting a pattern." Mum's face crumpled, but Dad did not retreat. Tristan turned back to Callum. "You're going to let them do this to me?" Callum stood. "I'm staying on campus after the winter break. I already spoke to Halls. I'm not moving wherever you go." Tristan's mouth opened, but no words came out. Callum then removed a debit card from his wallet and placed it on the table. "This is connected to the joint account you opened when I was 16. I closed my access today. The bank is reviewing the transactions." "What transactions?" Mom asked. Callum looked at Tristan. "He used my summer job deposits too." The new revelation caused another wave of outrage. Over 2 years, Tristan had withdrawn nearly £3,000 Callum earned working at a supermarket. He had labeled the withdrawals as household contributions without ever discussing them. Tristan finally lost control. He swept the fake invoice and official statement onto the floor. "Fine. You all want me to be the villain? Congratulations. Rowan gets to be the perfect daughter again. I did not raise my voice. This is not a contest between us. You falsified a bill, took your son's money, and tried to force me to cover it. Those are your actions. You think your life is so clean?" he shouted. "You abandoned this family for your career." The accusation would once have wounded me. That night, it revealed how little he knew. I had declined Edinburgh. I had driven Dad to rehabilitation. I had paid Tristan's mortgage and repaired the terraced house where he lived for free. Yet he had rewritten my independence as abandonment, because gratitude would have required him to acknowledge the cost. I reached into the document case and removed the spare terraced house key. I paid for the boiler, the roof repairs, and the electrical rewiring, I said. I kept this key because every emergency became my responsibility. Not anymore. I placed it beside the occupancy notice. Tristan stared at the key as if it were a weapon. "It's just a key," he said. "No," I replied. "It's the last responsibility of yours I was still carrying." Dinner ended without pudding. Tristan demanded that Mum drive him home, but Dad took the car keys from the counter and told him to arrange his own transportation. It may sound like a small consequence, but I had never seen Dad refuse him anything so directly. Tristan called a taxi, collected his coat, and stood by the front door waiting for someone to stop him. No one did. Before leaving, he looked at Callum. "When this falls apart, remember who caused it," Callum answered. "You told me never to blame other people for my choices." Tristan flinched. Then he pointed at me. "She'll turn on you too. The second you disappoint her, she'll make a file about you." I wanted to defend myself, but Callum spoke first. "She showed me the documents before tonight. She told me I could decide what to do. You never gave me a choice." Tristan slammed the door behind him. Mum immediately collapsed into a chair and accused Dad and me of destroying Christmas. She said Tristan might become homeless, depressed, or desperate. Every possible future consequence was placed at our feet rather than his. Dad listened quietly before saying, "Eleanor, we taught him this." She stared at him. "We taught him that Rowan would repair whatever he broke. We called it family loyalty because that sounded better than favoritism." Mum shook her head. "I loved both of them. Love wasn't the problem. I said the rules were different." She looked at me with an expression that mixed anger and grief. "Why didn't you tell me you felt this way?" "I did every time I said no." That answer ended the conversation. I left shortly after 8. The streets were nearly empty, and for the first time that day, I allowed myself to feel what had happened. I had imagined victory as relief, but the truth was heavier. Boundaries did not erase love. They forced love to exist without control. And sometimes the relationship could not survive that change. Tristan sent 23 messages before midnight. Some were insults. Some were apologies that ended with another demand. In one, he wrote, "I'm sorry you misunderstood why I needed the money." In another, "If Dad sells the house, Callum will blame you forever." The final message said, "Loan me £10,000 and I'll disappear from your life." I blocked his number. The university restored most of Callum's loan refund after the bank confirmed the transfer had been made through a recently changed account. The remaining amount became part of the formal dispute. Heritage Home Furnishings gave Tristan 30 days to resume repayment before referring the missing deposits to the police. Because Callum documented the unauthorized transfer quickly, he was not held responsible for the funds Tristan had moved. Dad followed through on the terraced house notice. Tristan assumed Mum would reverse the decision, but the property was legally in both parents' names, and Dad refused to sign it over. Mum secretly offered Tristan money from a savings account. He used part of it to hire a solicitor and the rest to lease an expensive vehicle, claiming he needed it for job interviews. That decision finally changed her. 2 weeks later, she called me. She did not apologize at first. She simply said, "He spent the emergency money on a car. I'm sorry. I thought if I helped him one last time, he would stabilize. There is always one last time." She began attending counseling with Dad. They separated their personal accounts temporarily because Dad no longer trusted her not to fund Tristan in secret. Their marriage did not collapse, but it stopped pretending nothing had happened. Callum returned to campus in January. I did not pay his full tuition. Instead, I covered the cost of an independent financial planning session and contributed directly to a university emergency grant after he applied for it himself. He took a part-time library job, appealed for additional aid, and adjusted his housing plan. I also offered to match a portion of what he earned during the term, provided the money went through an account only he controlled. He never acted entitled to it. That difference mattered. Tristan moved out of the terraced house 3 days before the deadline. Dad discovered damaged walls, unpaid utility bills, and several pieces of furniture purchased through the showroom where Tristan had worked. Some items were later returned as part of his settlement. Without free housing or family cash, Tristan moved into a rented room across town. He found temporary work-loading delivery vans at night. He told relatives I had engineered his downfall because I hated seeing him happy. The story worked on 2 cousins for a while, but most of the family had seen the evidence themselves. The greatest consequence was not the smaller room or the night shift. It was Callum's distance. Callum refused private meetings with him until Tristan participated in a mediation session through a family counselor. During the first session, Tristan reportedly spent 40 minutes blaming me. Callum left before it ended. 3 months later, Tristan tried again and admitted he had taken the loan refund. He still described it as borrowing, but it was the first time he acknowledged the action without attaching my name to it. I did not attend those sessions. Their relationship was not mine to manage. For years, I believed being the reliable one meant I had to hold everyone together. Christmas taught me that holding people together can become another way of preventing them from standing on their own. By the following December, our family looked different. My parents sold the terraced house and placed part of the proceeds into a restricted education trust for Callum. The trustee paid verified university expenses directly. Neither Tristan nor I could withdraw from it. Dad insisted on that structure because he wanted Callum's future protected without turning me into the new controller of his life. Mom eventually apologized, though not in the dramatic way people often imagine. She came to my flat one Sunday carrying a folder. Inside were copies of the old bank transfers I had made to Tristan, and a handwritten timeline of moments when she had pressured me to help him. "I kept thinking you were stronger, so asking more from you did less damage," she said. I understand now that strength isn't permission. It was the first apology she gave without requesting money, forgiveness, or silence in return. I told her I loved her, but trust would return slowly. She accepted that real accountability does not demand immediate absolution from the person who was harmed. Dad and I became closer. He admitted that avoiding conflict had allowed Mom's favoritism to control the family. He had often recognized the unfairness, but convinced himself that staying quiet kept peace. What it actually kept was the pattern. Tristan's consequences continued. Heritage Home Furnishings required full restitution under a legal agreement. He avoided a criminal trial, but only by accepting a strict repayment schedule and signing an admission of financial misconduct. His professional reputation in local retail management was damaged, and he could no longer qualify for similar positions involving customer accounts. He worked nights for most of the year, sold the expensive vehicle, and began paying back Callum in small monthly installments. He did not transform into a perfect brother. Some months he apologized. Other months he sent messages through relatives claiming the punishment was excessive. I did not measure my healing by his progress. We spoke once 11 months after Christmas. The meeting took place in a counselor's office at his request. He looked older and less polished than I remembered. For the first 20 minutes, he explained how frightened he had been after losing his job. He said he believed replacing the customer deposits would solve everything before anyone found out. "Why use Callum's university account?" I asked. "Because I thought I could put it back." "And why create the fake invoice?" He looked down. "Because I knew you wouldn't give me money if I told you the truth." That was the most honest sentence he had ever said to me. "You didn't ask me for help," I said. "You designed a trap." He nodded. "Do you understand that I may never trust you with money again?" "Yes." "Do you understand that apologizing does not restore the relationship we had?" After a long silence, he said, "Maybe the relationship we had shouldn't be restored." I did not forgive everything that day, but I recognized the beginning of responsibility. Forgiveness, when it comes, should not erase evidence, cancel boundaries, or return access to someone who abused it. It should free the injured person from carrying the offense every day. Access must still be earned. Callum completed his first year with solid grades. He switched his course from business administration to information systems, partly because the fraud experience made him interested in digital security. During the summer, he obtained a paid internship with the regional bank's cybersecurity department. He joked that his father had accidentally inspired his career. Though the sadness behind the joke remained, I accepted a supervisory position in Manchester and began helping develop regional safety protocols. It was not the Edinburgh opportunity I had surrendered years earlier, but this time, I accepted without asking whether my family could function without me. That was the deepest change. I stopped organizing my future around other people's emergencies. Looking back, the 25th of December was not the day I destroyed my family. It was the day I stopped financing the illusion that we were healthy. Tristan's deception did not begin with the fake university bill. It began every time the rest of us removed a consequence, rewrote one of his failures, or called Rowan because Rowan would fix it. Family support should help someone regain their footing. It should not require one person to stay on their knees so everyone else can stand on their back. There is an important difference between generosity and surrender. Generosity is freely chosen, clearly defined and respected. Surrender is extracted through shame, fear, or obligation. The amount of money does not determine which one it is. Consent does. I still believe families should help each other. I helped Callum navigate student finance because he asked honestly and participated in the solution. I listened when Mum acknowledged her role. I attended one counseling session with Tristan because he had begun repaying what he took. Support became possible only after responsibility entered the room. What I no longer believe is that blood creates an unlimited claim on someone's labor, money, or peace. Sometimes the most loving response is not another rescue. Sometimes it is allowing a person to experience the full weight of the decisions they made. Without that weight, they may never develop the strength to carry their own life. Tristan expected Christmas dinner to prove that I would always surrender in public. Instead, it revealed what private enabling had cost every one of us. He lost his home, his financial control over Callum, his family's automatic protection, and the career status he had tried to preserve. Those consequences were not revenge manufactured by me. They were debts he had postponed until the truth collected them all at once. My revenge was simpler. I stopped volunteering to pay. I stopped defending myself to people committed to misunderstanding me. I stopped accepting a role I had never chosen. And when my family finally understood that Rowan Blake was a person, rather than a financial emergency plan, I discovered something more valuable than victory peace without permission. So ask yourself this. If someone only calls you family when they need access to what you have, are they protecting the relationship or protecting the benefits they receive from it? Setting a boundary may disappoint people who profited from your lack of one. Their anger does not mean your boundary is wrong. Love can open a door, but accountability decides who is safe enough to enter. What would you have done if your brother demanded £16,000, forged a university bill, and planned to corner you on Christmas Day? Would you have exposed everything at dinner, handled it privately, or walked away before the first plate was served? We hope the story gave you something meaningful to think about beyond the drama. That is a fictional narrative created only for entertainment, education, and storytelling. Value might remind you that your heart deserves more than temporary apologies, empty promises, and relationships where respect appears only after they see you are already ready to live.